Please help me warmly welcome our guest speaker, no other than Mrs. Betty Comley.
Good morning, everybody. Let me start off by saying thank you to the St. Lucia Teachers Union for inviting me to make this presentation this morning. 2 years ago, the Principals Association invited me to make a presentation at the Principals Conference. But I must tell you, this one warms my heart because I know that you teachers are the ones that have the closest relationship with our students in the education system. So it is my honor to be here this morning. Now, for anybody who knows me, know I never just talk to you, but we have an interaction going. And so to start this interaction, we need to have some ground rules. So I'll tell you about that. Okay? So, the theme, valuing teachers' voices as inclusive and progressive educators. I am almost certain that the contents of my keynote address is not new to you. I am therefore asking for your assistance in finishing some of my sentences or my statements. So at the start of these sentences, I will raise my pointer to indicate that this is one of these sentences or statements coming up. When I mention the first letter of the upcoming word, could you please say the word loudly and clearly? You with me so far? Yes. Nice. Remember, we're talking voices, so you must speak to me. So let's do a demonstration because we don't want people arguing with each other, and we have a left and we have a right side. So we're going to say who is louder and clearer as well, find out about that. So let's do a demonstration exercise and see whether the teachers on my left or on my right are quicker and louder. There is a quote which reads, "Good teachers know how to bring about the best in S." Students. That's loud? Okay. Students. Well done, teachers. You got it. So let us continue. In this address, I will share on valuing teachers' voices, talk to inclusive and progressive educators, and quality management is about continuous improvement. So I could not leave here without talking about continuous improvement and the tool associated with continuous improvement. So when it comes to the school system, the two most important stakeholders are the students and the teachers. I didn't plan for that one, but I couldn't miss it. Think about it. A school cannot operate without students, nor can a school operate without you, the teachers. This alone already speaks to your importance and to your value as teachers. However, let's go further and complement this with the roles you play. You are a teacher as well as a substitute P. You go, you sounding louder. Is it because you have more people? Or you sounding louder? Very good for you. Substitute parents, substitute guardians, substitute sibling. That's what you are. You as a teacher, you are a teacher as well as a friend and a confidant, as a mentor and a coach, as a counselor, as an advisor, as a motivator. You know, you are a provider. You know, a teacher recently shared with me, well, actually it was a student who shared. The student said that he came to school with the wrong color socks. And when the teacher asked him how comes he was wearing wrong, he said his parents couldn't afford the color they wanted. He said to me the following day, the teacher, Julita Edwin, living at Cicero, Julita Edwin brought him the black pair of socks and said, "Hey, wear these socks." He told me he felt so bad because in truth and in fact, it wasn't that his parents couldn't afford. He just didn't want to wear the black socks on the day. But the fact that she provided him with the socks, he never wore white socks after that. You are a provider. You are a subject matter expert, you know. The parents go with homework, the students go with homework, and when they say teachers say, parents can't say anything else. Teachers say that's how it has to be done. You are a subject matter expert. My son told me about when he fainted at Cameron Rennie, And when he gained consciousness, the first person he saw were the teachers. You are first responders. Not to mention you are medical personnel. Wow. That's a lot of roles you play. Thank you, teachers. So, let us share on what you do bring to the table. You bring first-hand and intimate knowledge of your students. Sometimes even more knowledge than the parent. You realize that? Sometimes you even know more things about the students than the parent. You bring your lessons learned from the interaction with your students. What else you bring to the table? You bring experience in shaping minds from the formative years and preparing our children for the future. You bring your teaching contributions to our Darren Samuel, our Johnson Charles, our Laverne Spencer, and our universally recognized speech, strength, and spirit of Juju. What were we looking for? Well done, teachers. There is no doubt that your voice is important and should be valued. Education policymakers need to engage you. They need to listen and understand what you're saying. They need to source your input. They need to source your feedback. They need to be aware of your context. They need to affirm your accomplishments and much more. So yes, you are an authority on our nation's students, without a doubt. Now, teachers, we all know that with authority comes our responsibility. I am and will always be an educator. A commonly expressed goal of education is to provide individuals with the knowledge, the skills, the values, and the attitudes necessary to lead fulfilling lives and contribute to society. So as inclusive and progressive educators, how do we ensure this? What do we have to do? First, we have to identify, understand, and meet the needs and expectations of our students. And this word expectations is a big word. We take it lightly, but it's a big word. And if you think back to when you were a student, what were your expectations of the teacher? Could we hear from you? What were put yourself in their shoes. What were your expectations of your teacher? Talk to me, teachers. No voices? Make you learn. Thank you so very much. Be nice to you. Make learning fun. Sorry? Give me different experiences. Come on, teachers. What were your, put yourself in their shoes. What were your expectations? Grading your? Yes, grading and giving me some feedback. Yes, very important. And so this has to be one of your starting points. What are the expectations? You know, my husband and I do sessions with married couples or couples to get married. And one of the things we tell them, it is not love that hurts, you know. It is the expectations that hurt. You need to know those expectations. That way you can say which ones you can deliver on and which ones you cannot deliver on. Very important. You know, when we talk about expectations, I remember my husband and buying groceries. And some of you know my husband, Mark Orville, involved with the St. Lucia Teachers Credit Cooperative for the long time. And so when he goes to buy the groceries, he brings back the grocery list. And if he buys breadfruit for $5, he writes on it breadfruit for $5. And if he buys plantain for $5, right? Because he's about financial accountability. He must account for every cent related to the groceries. But he comes home, and I'm looking at the grocery list, and there is an expectation that if I look at the grocery list, I will see a marking, a crossing out, a check, something. And I'm looking at the grocery list and it's as I gave him. Now come on, teachers. Thank you so very much. Again, the importance of that validation check. You went to buy the groceries for me, there should be evidence that you did it well. A grocery list returned to me with no checks, no markings, have me wondering, what did you miss? And bet you he missed. But meanwhile, he has accounted for the finances. I tell you, we're moving on. As inclusive and progressive educators, we have to accept the individuality and the uniqueness of every student. Each of us, every single person is different. What works for one person might not work for another person. We know that in relationships. In relationships, what worked with one boyfriend or girlfriend is not necessarily what's going to work with one boyfriend or one girlfriend. We know that. So it's important that when you're in a relationship, you get to understand the person you are interacting with. Get to understand your students and understand that each of them is an individual and they bring something unique to the table. Foster a positive environment where all students feel they belong. You know, some years ago, I was attending a session at Leoness. It was a parents meeting. And Mr. Lubo, who was the principal at the time, he made the comment and he says, you know, parents, the students who get involved in mischief, the students who get involved in gangs, you'll be surprised. They are the students whose parents drop them off and pick them up and give them everything they need. That was the statement he made. I raised my hand at that point. I said, Mr. Lubo, children who go joining gangs are looking to belong. We must keep that in mind. That not because you are giving, it means that you are meeting the need. We need to understand what each other needs. As women, we can relate to that. As women, we know when we are not being fulfilled by our men, what that does to us. This is nothing new, so please, let the children feel like they belong. Aim to provide equal access to all students. Just like the ministry has to provide equal access for you, you have to do it for the students as well. Promote holistic growth, integrating the academic, the social, the cultural, and the spiritual aspects. And notice I said integrating. Because all these things are connected. We have to show the connections. We're teaching too many things in isolation. Show the connection, they are most likely to get it. We must be ready to learn from our students. You know, I've been teaching project management at UWI Open Campus since 2012. Sometimes I have 3 sessions per year, at least one. And so at the end of each session, I'm going over the feedback, and my husband is saying to me, you've done that so many times. Do you need to do that? Yes, I need to do that. Because every class is different. And the feedback is what lets me grow. We'll talk about feedback in a while. Very important. You need to encourage questions and enhance their curiosity. Don't shut them up. When students are asking questions, and first of all, that's brave of them to ask the questions. Take time to understand what it is they're trying to find out. You need to impart knowledge, but more so now, you need to develop their skills. And I will give you one tool. Before we end, I will leave you with one tool that each of you need to share with your student. Very important. You need to, we have to provide and receive feedback. You know, for me, feedback is food for improvement. That's what it is. Food for improvement. You can put that down as Betty Comby coined it. Feedback is food for improvement. I tell people, feedback allows me to grow. You know, I remember I was doing this session for this project with CXC, and they had me doing training and assessments in the different islands. So I am going to these different islands doing this training and assessment. And the first assessment I did, I had been doing a lot of training. And the first assessment I did, when they said something to me, I would have a story to tell about it. So I thought it was very interactive, you know, when the session was over, until I saw the feedback form. And the people said, that as an assessor, I was sharing too much. And they were right. We are trained as assessors to listen, to probe, to ask questions. I went in as an assessor, that's what I had to do. But I like sharing. So they said something, I remember a story I shared, but I was wrong. And I thank God that happened very early in my career, because now I know whenever I'm going in, I say, am I going as a trainer or am I going as an assessor? I need to change the hats. Feedback allows me to validate my value proposition. And so I don't know about you, but every now I'm asking my man, how am I doing? You need to ask your man or your woman, how are they doing? Because if you're not doing that, it's likely somebody else is doing that and meeting those needs and expectations. Feedback validates your value proposition. You think you're giving an experience, but you will not know unless the recipient tells you this is what they're experiencing. So if any of you here are not asking for feedback, come on people, you're not on a progressive journey yet. Very important. You know, as progressive and inclusive educators, we need to be comfortable with the technology. I made a special effort not to carry paper with me this morning. Carried my iPad because I want to tell teachers we need to start embracing the technology so our children too will embrace the technology, bring it to their homes so grandparents will embrace the technology. Because when our people travel, they are just bombarded by technology. And we're preparing our people for life. Keep that in mind. And we need to promote a culture of continuous improvement. And this is what I want to delve in at this point, continuous improvement. So I would like to expand a bit on the continuous improvement cycle known as PDCA. PDCA, anybody? Anybody? PDCA? Yes? Yes? Oy, oy, oy. Somebody helping out. He says plan. Plan to check, adjust. Close enough. Plan, do, check, adjust. Plan, do, check, and act to improve. The A, act to improve. Now, teachers, you're not new to this. If anybody, actually, I made that statement. I was involved in an evaluation meeting of proposals, and I made the statement and I said, nobody understands PDCA more than teachers. That was the statement I made. And a business person said, oh yeah, but they're the most inflexible people I've come across. Imagine that. If we're talking about inclusiveness and progressiveness, you have to be flexible. You have to be able to make the connections. PDCA is not new to you. You know PDCA because you're taught prepare lesson plan. Not so? Then you're told instruct according to the plan. That's the do. Then you're told to check. And then you're told to remediate and act to improve. You know that. This is applicable to everything. And when the financial people talk to you this afternoon, you let them know the budget is the plan. You implement the plan. You need to check and act to improve with the budget. This is applicable to every single thing that we do. So, now that you understand that, let us see how you do. So we know that if you fail to plan, you plan to F. Very good, you're sounding louder, teachers, you're sounding louder. We know that to do is to implement or to E. Come on, Julian used that word too many times. To execute the plan. We know to check is to monitor, to measure, or A. Assess. You know, I was doing a session for, Miss Dimplette, principal is there, doing a session for her grade 6 students. And the grade 6 students are good at this because they see it as synonyms. So they can tell you all the synonyms for plan, do, check, and act. And when I thought we had covered all the synonyms for check, one child said to me, hey, miss, you have to make sure. Make sure. right? Another two words we apply to check starts with a V. V for validate and V for verify. Membaila. And we must always act to improve. That is to correct, to make right, or to R. Act to improve. In the school system, how do you act to improve? What do you do? Remediate. Say it loudly. Remediate. Nice. Well done, teachers. We're moving along. So PDCA, plan, do, check, and act to improve. Like I said, nothing new to you because you prepare your lessons plan, the instruction is the do, your assessment is the check, and you must always act to improve. So, it is important to note two characteristics of the PDCA tool. It is a cycle, meaning you can start anywhere in the cycle. For example, before you begin instruction, you conduct a pre-assessment to determine where your students are at. Not so? Yes. Anywhere in the cycle you can start. And based on those results, then you do your planning. The other thing to note about PDCA, it is 4 activities that are not discrete, but interconnected, integrative, you got it. These things are connected. Because you know, sometimes while you're planning, you're doing. Definitely when you're doing, you're checking. When you're cooking the food, aren't you tasting the food? You're checking. And you add salt to act to improve. Basic. Anything you're doing and you're doing it well, you're using PDCA. So, in the case of they are integrative and not discrete. For example, during your instruction, you conduct formative assessment. Yes. You're doing the same things, 2 things, right? Almost at the same time. So let's examine each of these 4 activities in further detail. To plan well is to take into consideration the following: the needs and the E. Expectation. Come on, teachers, you are the voices. Let me hear those voices and the expectations of your students. When you are planning, take into consideration the Education Act, your curriculum guides, your school policies, the Sustainable Development Goal for Quality Education, which is the FDGF. The Sustainable Development Goal for Quality Education is SDGF. 4. Thank you. 4. Teachers, please, these things you need to know. And other authoritative guidelines. When you're planning, take into consideration holistic learning objectives. It cannot be just a focus on the academics. Okay? Bring everything into play. Risk and strategies. Things, you know, Murphy's Law, everything that can go wrong will go wrong. So the risks and strategies to address. You know, this risk that I tell people, and I'm not the only one saying that, any of you who have read Stephen Covey's Habits of Highly Effective People know that the first habit of highly effective people is to be P. Proactive, yeah? To be proactive. And in Roseback, my book, the R is risk. And in my book, I give this story of my son. And that's my first son, by the way, there, Omar. My second son did not like school. My first son liked school a bit too much. My second son did not like school. And so when he was 13 years old, my second son, I called him and I said, Zabs, you know, let's talk. You know, let's tell me, what's your vision? Where you see yourself in the next 10 years? You know, and he says to me, well, he planned to have a job, he planned to have a vehicle, and he planned to stay at home until he's 30 years old. I did not know that. It was good to know that I did not know that. I said to him, okay, notice there's no mention of going back to school. This is job, vehicle, and staying at home until he's 30. And I said to him, let's do a SWOT analysis, which is a tool you use to identify risk. So we did a SWOT analysis. And I said to him, he said a threat to him being at home until he's 30 years old is if he gets someone pregnant. Because it's one thing for you to be at your home until 30, but for you to tell me bringing your child mama, I have a problem with that. And so it was an opportunity for us to now discuss contraceptive, which was not the intention. But because we were talking about where he wanted to go and threats associated with it, we got an opportunity to talk about contraception and abstinence. Okay? So these strategies are so important. I remember Leon Hess, and I've told some of you that story again, and I'm sorry, Leon Hess is dear to my heart. My first teaching job was at Leon Hess. I met my husband at Leon Hess. My 2 boys went to Leon Hess. I am sorry, Leon Hess. And now Julian Alfred was Leon Hess. And so I am at Leon Hess, and I'm making this presentation to Form 3 students. And we are looking at the goal of successfully completing secondary school. And one student said to me, a threat to him completing secondary school successfully is a gope well. Real. And so it occurred to me, but wait a while, who was preparing our children to manage relationships? And so now I offer a training program called Relationship Management, because I'm going to start preparing our people to manage relationships. It's not an easy thing. I'm telling you that the easiest thing I did was get married. The more difficult thing has been maintaining that marriage. And I've been trying to do that for 25 years. So I don't know about you ladies, but I'm still trying to give my man an experience that titillates all his senses. So I'm making sure I'm looking good because of what he's seeing. I'm whispering his words of affirmation. What is he smelling? What is he tasting? All of that is coming into play. This is maintenance of a relationship. And I can share other things I do that I don't even think he knows I do. So we're moving along because I'm told I have to end at 11:15 for you to have break. So let's move on. So again, to plan well is to incorporate your lessons learned. And the lessons learned are from you, from the students, from other teachers. Talk to other teachers, people. Get the lessons learned. That's your starting point. Whatever activities you are involved in, there must be planning, doing, checking, and acting to improve. Background information on the students is important. Talk to the teachers from the previous grade. Go and look up their records. But dating me came to my house with a gift. Now you have to get my background. Let me tell you a bit about my background. My mother liked dressing up. And the same way she liked dressing up, she liked giving her daughter dresses. Even when I was working, she was still giving me dresses. And so this man comes to my house, he's dating me, and he gives me a gift for Christmas. Open up the gift, and it's a piece of fabric. My background, look at my background. Somebody else might have appreciated a piece of fabric. I made it known I did not appreciate a piece of fabric. You see, my man is a good man. He's a cheap man, but he's a good man. So, what resources do you need? And we will never have enough resources. But the few resources we have to use it strategically to give the student the best experience ever. In my book, I tell the story of when a guest is coming to my house. I don't even like cleaning. My boys, they like cleaning. I don't have a helper. I say to myself, what is the journey of that guest? And I clean along the journey. I close my boys' bedroom. I leave my bedroom open. And I say they might ask to use the bathroom. Make sure that's clean. We will never have enough resources, but let us be strategic with the few resources that we have. Resources has to stop being an excuse for us not to do the right thing well. So that's just the planning. Imagine that. That's just the planning. Now let's go into the doing. So what are you doing? Remember, this is a relationship between you and your students. You need to forge and you need to maintain that student-teacher relationship. You need to instruct and assess according to the lesson plan. You need to make the necessary changes based on information coming to you as well as on your context. You need to note and address issues and student complaints. People who complain with you are saying to you, I really want to remain in that relationship, but I have an issue. Because most people will just leave, but our students cannot leave. They are forced to stay there with you. So if they are brave enough to come and complain, please note what they are saying. Very important. And we must check. We must conduct assessments from the time they come in diagnostic. Do formative assessments while you're teaching. Do the summative. Have them do self-reflection and portfolios, because we no longer doubt just pen and paper. That's not what developing skills is about. We must ask them for feedback. Years ago when the boys were growing up, I said to them, tell me what you like and you don't like about mommy. My husband said to me, what nonsense is that? We're feeding them, we're clothing them, what they care, what they like and what they don't like. I cared and I asked, and they did it separately. And both of them said what they did not like about me is that when they were playing their game or watching a television program, I would call them to do something. I accepted that and I said, listen, when it's an emergency, I'll have no choice, but as much as possible, I will give you advance notice. And later on in the years, I asked, how did I do? How did I do, Omar? I improved. Maintaining relationship, you must get that feedback. And then we have to talk about your objectives that you set. They have to be reviewed. They have to be evaluated. Determine whether you achieve them. There will be data. We collect data for a reason. Data has to be analyzed. Let the data talk to you. And then review your overall performance. Not just the academics. Review your overall performance. Very important. And lastly, we must act to improve. So to act to improve is to address issues and complaints, to conduct remediation, to incorporate feedback, to benchmark, observing and emulating practices which yield results. And Juju benchmarked against whom? It wasn't just herself. Whom else did Juju keeps talking about that? Who else did she benchmark against? Usain Bolt. She benchmarked against Usain Bolt. Teachers, I don't know why we have this mentality that when people are doing well, we tend to put them down. When what we should be doing is studying them and aiming to be better than them. That is benchmarking. That is what progressive teachers do. You study them and you aim to be even better than them. That has to be your goal. And enhance your competence. And you being here is an example of you enhancing your competence. But I want you to remember, competence is a combination of things. Competence is about your qualification, your skill, your training, your experience. And I like to call it the big A. What's the big A? Your attitude. Coming from the head table, your attitude. One of my trainees shared his way of remembering PDCA. And I asked for you to go and share PDCA in your classroom. That it is a continuous improvement tool. You need to plan, you need to do, you need to check, and always act to improve. And one way he remembered it is by saying, please do come again. That's what you're doing. By utilizing PDCA, you're telling people, please do come again. And that is applicable in our homes and in the workplace, without a doubt. Because we would like our loved ones to keep coming back to us. We're losing our children. We must be aware of that. Okay? So as I come to an end, my fellow educators, we have no doubt about the value of your voices. Make sure it's loud and make sure it's clear. But let us continue to demonstrate that we are inclusive and progressive educators as we aim to provide our students with the knowledge, the skills, the values, and the attitudes necessary to lead fulfilling lives and contribute to society. And with this, I say thank you.